It's unfortunate that I learned that the hard way, but at least I can tell you how to avoid that yourself. I have traveled to over 60 countries by myself, and there's a lot of things I learned along the way the hard way. So I have 10 big things that you should not do if you're traveling alone. Let's start with number 10, and that is not behaving on the road like you do at home. So here's the thing. You are alive right now, you're watching this video, good for you. That means that what you're doing so far is totally working. And unless you live in a tiny isolated village, chances are you've had things come up, situations in life where you had to act in a certain way to preserve your ability to live. So don't forget that when you're on the road. So a lot of times people, when they're on vacation, they don't act the same way that they would if they were at home. They're a lot more careless. They're a lot more like, hey, let's party. And while I totally get that, it might be the first time you're tasting pure freedom. Of course, you want to live it up as much as possible. But don't forget that the things that you do at home will keep you alive abroad as well. Number 9, listen to your intuition. So a lot of us, especially those of us who have been traveling for a long time, there are certain rules that we hold sacred, and pretty much all of us who have had a problem ended up breaking one of those rules, myself included, and I will definitely talk about that later on in this video. Your intuition is a lot sharper than you think, and if you've got that little voice in the back of your head that's telling you this is bad, you don't need to be polite. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to say yes. You don't need to be honest. This is your opportunity to say, you know what? No, I'm going to back out of this situation. I don't feel good about it. And it is the most empowering thing ever, I have to tell you, when you decide that no is an okay answer. Number 8, I know this might seem obvious, but don't get too intoxicated. A lot of the situations where things have gone wrong for people, especially solo travelers, all starts here. It comes from getting too drunk when you're on your own. You're with new people who maybe don't have your best interests in mind, or just don't know you well enough to babysit you. And this is when your decision making can go not so great. So if you drink too much, you might black out. You might end up deciding to do something or trust someone that you normally wouldn't. Your intuition is harder to hear in these situations. Your judgment is not as good. So I know that when you're traveling for the first time, you want to meet people, you want to be social, and you can totally do that, but that doesn't mean that you have to get totally wasted. And so really watch it, really pace yourself when you're drinking. And if you struggle with that, then maybe don't drink. I haven't drank for 4 years now, and I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, traveling sober is amazing as well. And it may seem like it's going to be super isolating and boring, but it is quite the opposite. So while we're on the topic of not getting too intoxicated, let's go into number 7, which is watch what you drink. There are places where sometimes the alcohol is poisoned, honestly, and you could also get roofied. If someone just hands you a drink, you really need to question where that actually came from. When I was traveling in Indonesia, there were some problems with people drinking whiskey that was actually not good, and getting blindness or even dying from it. And so I only drank beer when I was there, beer that I could see them open right in front of me. There's never an opportunity for someone to slip something in there. So just think twice really about what you're drinking and be really careful. Remember that you are responsible for your safety, especially if you're traveling alone. So you need to be the number 1 guard of that. Number 6 is not reading up on scams and dangers before you go. I am the type who just loves to show up somewhere and totally wing it. I went to Bangkok 9 years ago with a one-way ticket and nothing booked, and I had the best trip of my life. But I did read up on scams, dangers, and things to know before I went. You can still totally open yourself up to serendipity without putting yourself in danger. I just want to give you an example. If you were to land at the Bali airport, for example, without having any idea about all the scams that you're in for, you're going to get taken for a ride. You've got SIM cards that they're selling for $45, which is astronomical in Indonesia. You've got taxis that they're going to try to sell you for sometimes 10 times the price. I'm so serious. You've got unmarked taxis there, and that's another thing that is really smart to avoid. You never know where they're taking you. You want to make sure they have their credentials. And so not knowing that that's what you're in for before you get to the airport is going to set you up for failure. That is really just more monetary, but there's other things you need to know, like for your own personal safety. For example, if you're in Ho Chi Minh City, you need to be really careful about your bag. And so in that case, I would do, well, I personally love a fanny pack, but just be really careful about what you're you're carrying on your person, because there are people who ride by on motorbikes and just cut it off of you. If you know that before you go, then you won't be one of those people who it happens to, because you're going to be prepared. It takes like 10 minutes of Googling and like read message boards, read what comes up in travel blogs where people are giving you recommendations, buy a guidebook if you like guidebooks. Don't go into a situation blind where you really don't know what you're in for. Number 5 has more to do with, should you carry any kind of weapon? I guess it's hard to really say what you should do in this situation, because everyone's going to feel really differently about what's right for them. But just know that in Europe, for example, a knife or even mace are considered a concealed weapon. It's not actually legal for you to have those things. So just know that, those are things that you could totally do. Yeah, I suppose you need to look into the laws and regulations wherever you're going, and quite often you can't even put these things in checked luggage, and certainly not in carry-on luggage either. But you can carry a personal alarm. You can carry a door jamb. These are both really small. The door jamb blocks anyone from being able to get into your room, and the personal alarm, if you have an issue and you pull the alarm, it's going to make such a loud noise that the person might just want to run away. Another thing that you can do to help yourself out is have a dummy wallet or a dummy purse. It's just an extra purse where you put like some canceled cards or a library card, a little bit of petty cash, and then put all of the rest of your belongings in your bra, in your shoe, in another place where it's hidden. And then that way, if someone comes up and they want something from you, hand it off right away. Easy, no scuffle, no resistance, just give it to them. They want a quick getaway just as much as you want them to get away. So these are not bad ideas to have with you. I never have had a situation where it would have been necessary to pull a gun or a knife on someone. So I'm glad that hasn't come up for me after over 60 countries alone. But you can do things like the door jamb and the personal alarm, if nothing else, for peace of mind. Number 4 is walking around alone, especially at night. So I know in some places it would really be fine to walk around alone, and I hike alone all the time. So in natural areas, national parks, these are areas where I don't worry about it. I used to live in Berlin, Germany. I would walk alone there, but I would not walk alone through the parks at night. There's certain places where it's just not smart to walk alone. Like even during the daytime in Cape Town, it's not a good idea to walk around. There's just so many situations where someone could mug you, or worse, they could beat you up. I have several friends who ended up getting beaten up because they walked home alone from a bar. They knew not to do it, but they broke their own rules. So sometimes you get a little bit complacent, end up breaking your own rules, and that's when bad things happen. That was my only bad experience as well. It was in Pokhara, Nepal, and I was getting ready to go get water, and then the power went out. So all of the street lights went out, and I was just like, oh no, now what am I gonna do? So instead of waiting for someone to get back to the hostel who I could ask to go with me to go get water, I got a little bit complacent, I got a little bit lazy, and I just decided, you know what, I want to go do it now. So I went out at dusk, and then someone groped me and ran. And honestly, by the time I even realized what had happened, by the time I turned around, I just saw the back of the guy's head and the bottom of his shoes. So nothing could have prepared me for that. Nothing could have saved me from that, except for probably being in a bigger group of people. Obviously a knife, a gun, none of that would have helped me in that situation, because it just was so fast that it happened. Not putting yourself in a position where things like that can happen in the first place is really the smartest way to go. And it's unfortunate that I learned that the hard way, but at least I can tell you how to avoid that yourself. Number 8 is having some kind of backup cash method. I've had situations before where the ATM ate my ATM card, or I lost it, things like that happen. Have a backup somewhere, have it hidden elsewhere in your luggage. I also have my mom on my bank account. If you have someone you trust that you can put on your bank account as well, that's really helpful, because sometimes you're in a part of the world where it gets flagged as fraud, and then you can't pull out money, and then they end up calling the number that they have. That just goes to my mom, who will have cell signal, who is in the States and is able to answer that call. I had that happen in Zambia, I had that happen in Botswana. Situations like that will come up, they can come up. Maybe you get robbed, maybe something unfortunate like that happens. So having a backup method to keep yourself afloat is a really good idea. Number 2 is not taking charge of your own navigation. So I think it's really important to get a SIM card as soon as I land in a country. I do that at the airport, unless I read, again, like the Bali example, that they're way too expensive and it's a scam. But most of the time you can actually buy the SIM card at the airport. So I do that immediately. I put it right into my phone. I'm activated from day one. This has been possible in 90% of the countries that I've been to. From there, I can then track my progress or even get an Uber at the airport to get to my accommodation. If that's not possible, I like to download offline maps before I go. You can use Google for this, you can use Maps.me, which is my preferred for this. So again, this is not ruining serendipity for you. You can still like leave everything else open to chance, but at least know where you are. And the other nice thing about having a SIM card is if you're ever lost, you can like pull it out and navigate. You can make calls. Like, it's saved my butt so many times to have a SIM card with a local number. And I highly recommend that you bring an unlocked phone when you travel so that you can do the same thing. The number one thing, the biggest mistake I feel like people make is standing out too much or not trying to blend in. If you are a little bit flashy with your money, that's usually all it takes. If you are sort of the easiest target, that's usually all it takes. So do make sure that you are dressing modestly if in a country where that's important. Do make sure that you are doing your best to blend in with the local customs. Show that you at least know some of the language. Learn hello and thank you. And it would be so much better to just cut down what you're bringing, travel carry-on only, go basic, and just be there for the experience. Like, you don't need to wear your jewelry, you don't need to wear your designer stuff, you don't need to bring a designer purse. Traveling the world for me has not meant looking over my shoulder constantly. Yes, I need to be aware. Yes, I walk with my head held high. Yes, I have confidence when I talk to people. I look them in the eye. I don't let myself get intimidated easily. I just enjoy myself and have an amazing time. And I've actually hitchhiked in 6 out of 7 continents. I have stayed with local people. I, generally trust life and I trust the world. And by listening to my intuition and following those rules, things have worked out all right for me. So everyone needs to sort of measure for themselves what they are comfortable with. But as someone who's been traveling alone for 9 years now, those are my top solo female and male travel safety tips. Hope you enjoyed.